as we are less than a week away from the 2016 NFL Draft. Today, I released my final NFL mock draft of the season, 6.0. Before we get to that, it has just been reported that Josh Norman, the former cornerback for the Carolina Panthers, will sign with the Washington Redskins. Now, this came as a shock to me. I'm really surprised that he signed with somebody this early. I thought we were going to wait until maybe like May or June. But the Redskins offered him money, which this comes as a surprise to me because I didn't think the Redskins had enough cap space to sign him because of all the money they had to use on Kirk Cousins. Or I'm not sure if he was franchise tagged or not. I wasn't sure who it was that got the franchise tag on the Redskins. It probably was Kirk Cousins. But, one more thing before I release my mock draft. I want to kind of do something fun. I want you to comment below your mock draft of the whole first round. We can count this as a contest, like the goal for this is to predict the whole first round, but you get points off this. For example, if you have Jalen Ramsey going number 3rd overall, but he goes number 6, that's 3 points. If you predict a correct trade that happens with a team, you get -2 bonus points. This isn't going to make sense, but it's going to in a second. If you have a player that didn't get drafted in round 1, you get 5 points. The goal is to get the closest to 0. Whoever gets closest to 0 wins. I don't have any prizes really. My budget's really small. I don't have a budget like this big. I have a budget that's probably only like that big. But I'll think of something to get to the winner. But just be patient. It might be a long time before you get it, but please be patient with me and be understanding. So let's get to my mock draft now. I'll explain more about this little contest at the end. But first, in a surprise turn of events, the Los Angeles Rams now have the number 1 pick. And I have them going with Jared Goff, the quarterback out of California, who is once again Austin Harper's favorite player in this year's NFL draft class. At number 2 now, surprisingly, the Eagles have the number 2 pick. I have them going with Carson Wentz, the quarterback out of North Dakota State. At number 3, I have the Chargers going with Jalen Ramsey, the cornerback out of Florida State. At number 4, I have the Dallas Cowboys going with Joey Bosa, the defensive out of Ohio State. Although, it was reported that he allegedly failed a drug test at the NFL Combine. Although, if you remember, Randy Gregory was going to be about a top 10, top 15 pick, but then he failed a drug test. Or I think he got arrested for like drug possession or something like that. And he fell all the way to the 2nd round, but to the Dallas Cowboys. I really don't think that this is going to affect Joey Bosa's draft stock. It'll probably just affect on how the Cowboys think of him. Although the Cowboys will probably be understanding because Jerry Jones drafts a lot of strange players. And he signs a lot of strange players as well. At number 5, I have the Jaguars going with Miles Jack, the inside linebacker of UCLA. Although I did see a tweet on my timeline. I'm not sure who it's from. I'm not gonna go look because I don't want to just look down at this phone right here that go on my Twitter page and do this at the same time. I don't want to do that. But whoever it was, I will comment their Twitter handle in the description box. You can go follow that person. But it said that teams might pass on Miles Jack. I really don't think they're going to necessarily pass on him because he has an apparent knee injury. But he missed most of the season last year at UCLA. I think the Jaguars probably still take him because they can still use the defensive help. At number 6, I have the Baltimore Ravens going with DeForest Buckner, the defensive end of Oregon. Now he's the number 2 defensive end in this draft class, only behind Joey Bosa. Well, it's a possibility he could end up with Dallas. Number 7, I have the 49ers going with Laramie Tunsil, the offensive tackle out of Ole Miss. What it seems like now is the 49ers are just waiting to draft Jared Goff. Possibly. Or maybe Carson Wentz, depending on how the dominoes would have fallen. If the Rams didn't make the original trade with the Titans. But if the Browns and the Eagles made the trade, it was only a kind of a question of what was going to happen. Because they were waiting on either Wentz or Goff, but now that they can't draft one of those, what I think they're going to do is I think they're going to take an offensive tackle, because this is a good chance to get Laramie Tunsil. He could probably be an offensive tackle for maybe 10 to 12 years. Because it looks like either they're going to look for maybe Connor Cook or Christian Hackenberg in maybe round 2 or 3, even Dak Prescott in round 4. No matter who the quarterback's going to be, they need the offensive line protection. Because if you've noticed who's in the NFC West, the Rams, who have a pretty strong and solid defense, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals. It's very important for them to at least finish third in the NFC West next season. So they need to build that franchise, because they don't want the face of the franchise, or the quarterback's going to be, to get hurt. And number 8, I have the Browns going with Ezekiel Elliott, the running back out of Ohio State. This is almost kind of a representation of the movie Draft Day. Except the Browns originally had pick 7, but then they traded with the Seahawks to get pick number 1. By the way, this didn't really happen. This is just from the movie Draft Day. It's almost just a representation of it. We can portray Carson Wentz as Bo Callahan. We can portray Ezekiel Elliott as Ray Jennings Jr. We can portray it like that. We can portray Joey Bosa as Vontae Mack. Again, this is just from a movie. This didn't really happen. Don't go in the comment section and say I'm stupid because that didn't happen. It's from a movie. I know that. Number 9 are the Buccaneers going with Shaq, Lawson, defensive end of Clemson. Now, some people think he's going to probably fall middle of the first round. In fact, I actually had him in the middle of the first round. I think it was in Mock Draft 3.0. Going to my Atlanta Falcons, number 17. But I think Shaq Lawson is too strong of a player to pass up, especially with the Buccaneers needing that defensive help, needs that pass rusher, because the Buccaneers have to play the Panthers, the Saints, and the Falcons twice a year. At number 10, I have the Giants going with Vernon Hargreaves, the cornerback out of Florida. Now, the Giants are really trying to get Josh Norman, and with Josh Norman going to the Redskins, the Giants need to draft a solid corner, and Vernon Hargreaves is the best thing you're going to get right now. At number 11, I have the Bears going with Ronnie Stanley, offensive tackle of Notre Dame. Now, Jay Cutler is probably going to be with the Bears for just this last season. And in 2017, I expect somebody else to be in the quarterback position for the Bears. But until then, you need offensive line for the future, and Ronnie Stanley's it. Number 12, I have the Saints going with A'Shawn Robinson, the defensive tackle of Alabama. Now, A'Shawn Robinson has won a lot of big games at Alabama. And he has the winning attitude, the desire to win. Kind of like what Carson Wentz has. And I think the Saints need this player. Maybe spark that defense that has struggled probably for the last handful of years. Number 13 are the Dolphins going with Eli Apple, the cornerback out of Ohio State. The Dolphins really need help in the secondary. Their secondary wasn't all that great last season. Especially the entire defense wasn't that good. And it was hyped up to be a great one with the addition of Ndamukong Suh last season. But it was not. Number 14, I have the Oakland Raiders going with Jerron Reed, the defensive end of Alabama. Same reason as why I have the Saints going with A'Shawn Robinson. Because Jerron Reed has won big games. He's won a national championship. That desire to win. Just the winning desire. The Raiders need someone like that in their franchise. They need him to make the Oakland Raiders great again. Number 15, I have the Tennessee Titans going with Jack Conklin, the offensive tackle of Michigan State. And I'll explain this right now as I gotta kind of get some light in here a little bit. Because it seemed originally they were going to go with Laramie Tunsil, the offensive tackle of Ole Miss. But then when they traded with the Rams, maybe something happened. Maybe because they realized they could get a quality offensive lineman in the middle of the first round. I think the Titans were very smart to do that. I think that was a smart move, especially because you need to fill some great gaps for DeMarco Murray next season and Antonio Andrews. Although the Titans could draft a running back probably in the later rounds. Maybe Alex Collins in round 3 or 4. Number 16 on the Lions go with Sheldon Rankins, defensive lineman out of Louisville. This is just a pick. I just think the Lions need to focus on defense first. You can get some solid... let me backtrack a little bit. This is one of the picks where I see it getting traded to somebody else. I could see the Lions trading down. In fact, I would not be surprised if this happened. I will not be surprised if I saw the Lions trade down with somebody. Maybe somebody like the Texans or the Bengals. That would not surprise me at all. In fact, I'll actually put this out here. I think the Lions will trade down and draft a wide receiver. And by the way, I'm going to put this mock draft into the contest. You guys can compete against me as well. I already know I'm not going to win. The goal is to get at least 10 people in there, by the way. But the Lions just need to, if the Lions don't trade this pick, they need to work on the defense. That defense did not look good. Losing Ndamukong Suh did not help the Lions defense at all. Number 17, I have my Atlanta Falcons going with Reggie, Ragland, inside linebacker of Alabama. Dan Quinn needs this guy on the team because of his desire to win. And winning is what he will do. At number 18, I have the Colts going with Emmanuel Ogbah, the defensive end of Oklahoma State. Now, the Colts defense was atrocious last year as well. Especially there was a game where they gave up over 50 points to the Steelers and the Jaguars. That defense is just horrendous. They need a solid pass rusher. And I think Emmanuel Ogbah is it. The Colts may have had a down year, but Andrew Luck not playing half the season is no excuse when your defense gave up 50 points in 2 games last season. At number 19, I had the Bills going with Kevin Dodd, the defensive end of Clemson. And at number 20, I have the Jets going with Kenny Clark, the defensive tackle of UCLA. Now, there was a report that maybe the Bills and the Jets one of those two teams could trade down, maybe with Denver, and maybe go after Paxton Lynch. Although I think you'll be able to get Paxton Lynch probably within the first 10 picks of round 2. Now at 21, I have the Redskins going with Daquan Trevor, the wide receiver of Ole Miss. I could also see the Redskins maybe trading down as well. But I just think with Daquan Trevor on the board, you can't pass up on Laquan Treadwell. Especially because they need a wide receiver to complement Deshaun Jackson. And Pierre Garçon was irrelevant last year. And this is the part of the draft where we kind of get wide receiver happy. I have the Houston Texans at 22 going with Josh Dotson, the wide receiver of TCU. 23 are the Vikings going with Will Fuller, wide receiver, Notre Dame. And now this is the part where we get defensive player happy as well. 24, Bengals going with Robert Nkemdiche, defensive tackle of Ole Miss. Number 25, Steelers, Mackenzie Alexander, cornerback out of Clemson. Number 26, Seahawks going with Vernon Butler, defensive tackle of Louisiana Tech. Number 27, Leonard Floyd, linebacker out of Georgia. Number 28, I have the Kansas City Chiefs going with Corey Coleman, wide receiver out of Baylor. Number 29, I have the Cardinals going with Taylor Decker, offensive tackle of Ohio State. Number 30, I have the Panthers going with William Jackson, cornerback out of Houston, which this pick is only a great pick for the Panthers, considering they need a corner to replace the now Washington Redskins Josh Norman. Or they could also trade up with the Steelers and draft Mackenzie Alexander. Or maybe the Panthers trade up a couple picks before the Steelers, just in case Mackenzie Alexander gets taken before that. Then at number 31, I have the defending Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos with Jonathan Bullard, defensive end of Florida. So that is my first round. Now I will explain a couple of the major picks that I did not get to. Number 1 with the Rams going with Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff, I think it's only perfect for him to be in this situation. Although, it could be reversed. Maybe Carson Wentz could be better for the Rams and Jared Goff better with the Eagles. Because the Eagles want to run a no-huddle offense. Actually, never mind. They probably won't want to do that. Because they want to go back to the Andy Reid type days. But they hired Doug Peterson. Maybe Jared Goff would be better as an Eagle or a Ram. I think Jared Goff will be just fine no matter where he goes. I just think Jared Goff will need about maybe 3 or 4 years. Because before I saw more Jared Goff tape, I thought he was just another Jake Locker. But, in fact, Jared Goff's comparison to me is probably Nick Foles. Back when he was with Philly. Like, probably that year that he... the year we only threw 2 interceptions. And with Carson Wentz, he kind of reminds me of a Ben Roethlisberger or an Aaron Rodgers. Now, with the Chargers going with Jalen Ramsey, this is a pick that they need to replace Eric Weddle. And Jalen Ramsey kind of reminds me maybe of maybe Patrick Peterson. And with the Cowboys, I think Joey Bosa could remind me of a J.J. Watt, maybe 5 or 6 years down the line. DeForest Buckner, he could remind me of an Ndamukong Suh maybe 3 or 4 years down the line. Ezekiel Elliott, he could be an Adrian Peterson a couple years down the line. Vernon Hargreaves, he could also be a Patrick Peterson maybe down the line. Jack Conklin, maybe he can be a Pro Bowler offensive tackle. So who else should I explain? Laquan Treadwell could be Calvin Johnson. It could be a comparison to Calvin Johnson a couple of years down the line. Will Fuller could probably be maybe a Wes Welker or Randall Cobb. Corey Coleman could also be known as Megatron because he's a very explosive player that came from a very explosive offense coming from Baylor. Now, is there anybody that you think that was not in this mock draft that could end up maybe being a late pick in the first round? Like, for me, it could be Noah Spence, because I had Noah Spence pretty high. I think it was mock draft 4.0. But now he's not even in the first round. So comment what you think. How does my mock draft look? And what does your mock draft look like if you want to enter into the contest? Once again, the goal is to get at least 10 people to do this. It would mean a lot if a lot more people did it. And how does Josh Norman sign with the Redskins? How does it help or hinder the Redskins? Now, it was originally claimed that Josh Norman, that they only took the franchise tag off him because he was requesting that there wasn't enough cap space. But I think it was more than that. I just think it was because Josh Norman maybe had an attitude problem with the Panthers. Maybe something happened in the locker room after a game. Maybe Josh Norman wasn't happy with the teammates. Maybe something happened after the Super Bowl. We don't know. But my prediction is something may have happened, that he lost chemistry with some of the teammates. Maybe something happened with his attitude. Who knows? Although, I really hope Josh Norman is successful with the Redskins. Some people think he's the best corner in the game, but nobody really throws to him that much. Only 4 interceptions last season, but Marcus Peters, a rookie, had 8. That's just something to think about. Is Josh Norman overhyped? Or is he really good? Or is he a good player like everybody says he is? I'll leave that up to you. That's my video. Feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. Also, email me, tweet me. I'll put it in the description box. Have a good day. See you next time.